A little over a year ago, Fiedler Audio released the Dolby Atmos Composer, a plugin solution that allows users of any digital audio workstation to work with Dolby Atmos. The Dolby Atmos Composer had a significant impact on the accessibility of Dolby Atmos for bedroom producers and has quickly become a favorite for anyone working in spatial or immersive audio. And best of all, the Essentials version of the Dolby Atmos Composer is completely free. You can just download it and get started with Dolby Atmos. In the latest episode of our podcast, Spatial Audio Monthly, Sam Hawking and I had a conversation with Thomas Fiedler, the developer of the Dolby Atmos Composer. We discussed the history and strategy behind the plugin. And Fiedler Audio has just announced the release of their new plugin Gravitas, which promises to disrupt the spatial audio production space once again. In preparation for the launch of this new plugin, I felt it made sense to bring our discussion with Thomas Fiedler about the Dolby Atmos Composer to my main channel as well. The following is an edited version of this conversation. If you're interested in the full discussion, I will leave a link to the podcast episode in the description below. And with that being said, let's turn it over to Thomas Fiedler. When the Dolby Atmos Composer came out last year, many of us were extremely excited because it really kind of was a paradigm shift. Suddenly, you could use any digital audio workstation or almost any digital audio workstation. I think there's still some issues with Pro Tools, but you could use any audio workstation, digital audio workstation, and do Dolby Atmos with the Composer at a price that was very affordable, quite frankly. So I'm kind of let me start the discussion by kind of how came the Dolby Atmos Composer to be? Can you kind of elaborate a little, sort of the history of how that came about?
Yeah, basically the history is that. Since you can say almost 25 years, I'm interested in spatial audio, and audio comes from everywhere. And well, it's not so much about things swirling around your head, but it's about natural hearing actually. Because when we don't listen to music, we don't have on any headphones. Also, we always listen in 3D. 3D is the natural way to listen, and to go to spatial audio, any kind of spatial audio, whatever it is, simple multi-channel audio, or be it Dolby Atmos or MPEG-H or whatever format, is meant to actually fulfill that hearing, to fully use your hearing capacity to actually give you the maximum listening experience, if you want to say it like this. And I was working some years with Fraunhofer Institute, the inventors of MP3. That is the most famous thing what they did, and they also are the inventors of MPEG-H.
We actually had them on the podcast not that long ago.
Yeah. Yannick, I know.
Yeah, Yannick.
So I know him personally, and while I was in the Fraunhofer Institute working with them, they developed this 3D reverb algorithm, which is now on Spacelab. And I was fascinated from the start because they have a super huge 3D audio studio with, 62 channels, which is really impressive. They have so many channels because you can switch between many different formats, and then they use the channels which I need for that. And the moment they put on this 3D reverb, I was like, this is how reverb has to be, because it surrounded you. It was totally natural. It is without any artifact, even without any kind of modulation. Usually, especially older reverbs, they use modulation to somehow smooth out the tail, to not get some kind of metallic sound or artifacts or whatever, or some repetition patterns or something like that. So they try to smooth it out by using the tricks. But this this algorithm, I could say, is so sovereign in its field that you just put it on without any modulation, and it just sounds like a natural room. Many people have asked me, what are the impulse responses? Can I load impulse responses? But it's an algorithmic reverb, but which comes close to the sonic fidelity of an impulse response, but it's extremely flexible. It's around you, and then when I was working there in Fraunhofer, the question came up, well, how can we make that available to the people? And then I said, well, we could do it a commercial plugin. And then they asked many different companies, and well, then the rest. Fiedler Audio got the job. So we made Spacelab, and then I thought, well, Spacelab in itself is a nice idea, but how to get that to the producers, and what can producers actually do with that, so that it gets to the people? I mean, of course, if you are in a film production, you already have a multi-channel DAW like Pro Tools, you just put it on as a multi-channel reverb, then you send your stuff there, and you have a nice reverb. But what about all the musicians and everybody who's on a stereo DAW? And what about musicians at all? And then the time came where Dolby Atmos became big in the music field and was promoted by Dolby. And I also saw that the big distributors jumped on the train. And I said, well, that might be a game changer, which brings spatial audio to the common people, so to speak. Because before, 20 years ago, there was the big hype, or more than 20 years ago, there was a big hype about 5.1, and it never took off because it was too complicated for the people to actually listen to. So people would have to set 6 speakers in their living room with a very low wife acceptance factor. So people, not many people did that, and so it actually it was never really a thing for the masses. But now with Dolby Atmos, which you can listen to on headphones, that thing has the potential to become the next stereo, if you will. And so I said, well, we have to find a solution for how everyone can access this potential. And with Spacelab, I already had developed the technology with which you can connect one plugin to the other, circumventing the limitations of the DAW. And I said, well, that's predestined to use to be used for something. So that to create Dolby Atmos on any DAW. And initially,
so interesting. The kind of this connectivity kind of started out with Spacelab. Spacelab was the one where you actually implemented that. That's interesting.
Yeah, this is an idea which I had, I don't know, 2015 to use it. I saw it in other products before, like the SAD of Tom Ammerman is doing something similar. And that one came out much earlier. And I thought, but this product, the SAD of Tom Ammerman is very complicated for most people. It's a little bit. Sorry, Tom. It's a little bit nerdy, the GUI, but the idea is good, and it should just be made in such a way that it is more accessible for anyone.
So just to clarify, for SAD, we are speaking about the Spatial Audio Designer. I think that's,
Spatial Audio Designer. And I implemented it for Spacelab, and then I said, well, that's predestined to be used for Dolby Atmos solution. Well, prior to that, I thought I will, because Spacelab came out with the MPEG-H exporter, which is another plugin to which Spacelab can connect directly to export MPEG-H. And I thought to make something similar for Dolby Atmos. But then while developing the idea, I said, no, that has to be something different so that people don't need Spacelab, but they can just have a solution with which they can do Dolby Atmos on any DAW, and Spacelab can connect to it. So, and then you already have some kind of ecosystem with which you can do really, Dolby Atmos, not only Dolby Atmos, but Dolby Atmos with a reverb, which is up to the task of feeding Dolby Atmos with something nice sounding, and on any DAW, because I think this is the way to go. The plugins democratized the music making industry, and this is just a logical step to me.
Mm-hmm.
Before we continue, a quick reminder, if you've enjoyed this video so far, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or comments, please either use the comment section below or join us on our Discord server. The invite link is in the description. If you want to support this channel, you can do so by becoming a member either through YouTube or Patreon. There's also a free membership option on Patreon. And with that being said, let's return to our conversation with Thomas Fiedler.
Now, the Dolby Atmos Composer comes in two versions, right?
Yes.
There's like an essential version and kind of at some point you made one of them free, right?
Yes. Well, of course, the essential version we made free. Because, well, our idea was, again, Atmos to the people. And I mean, we wanted to give Atmos tools into the hands of everyone, basic Atmos tools, so that they can start doing the thing. And when they want to get serious, of course, they should buy the big version, because there are things which are quite necessary, which are not in the essential version. With the essential version, you basically have the same feature set as you have in Logic Pro. This was more or less the idea for the essential version, and also you can connect Spacelab to essential, which is some killer feature for free software. And but that's it. So you can start creating full-fledged Dolby Atmos on any DAW for free. Well, and when you get more proficient and you want to really fine tune your things, and you need loudness measurement and other things, then you need the big version.
But I think for the average kind of bedroom producer, I think the essentials version is just fine to get started, right? I mean, it's actually amazingly powerful for the fact that it's free.
Yeah, for starting is good, but once you want to deliver to distributors, you need some kind of loudness measurement. And you can, if you have something for that which can actually do the job in the correct way, congrats. If not, Dolby Atmos Composer, the full version, has it built in, where you can measure the loudness of your mix, and you can also measure the loudness of an imported ADM file. So once you have produced the ADM file and the distributor says, no, we don't take it because this and that, you don't need to go back to the mix. You can load the ADM file, correct the loudness, re-export. This is very quick, and read and send it back to the distributor.
When you look back at the development of the Dolby Atmos Composer, what are the things that you are most proud of, and what are the things that you kind of wish you would have known earlier, or kind of things that kind of didn't work out as well?
Good question. I'm happy that the Dolby Atmos Composer was so well received. We got a lot of very, very good feedback, and last year we also had a very nice feature in the Sound and Sound magazine about the Dolby Atmos Composer and all its bells and whistles. And we will continue to do that. About things which I regret, well, nothing actually. There's also nothing where I would say I would have done it differently. A few details maybe, but nothing really important, and nothing which couldn't be solved which cannot be solved by adding something new or some feature addition to the Dolby Atmos Composer in the future.
Yeah. Was there any pushback from Dolby in terms of you had to do something a certain way? Obviously, they've got their quality control, I guess, side of it, that they want to maintain the ADMs consistent and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But were they quite flexible in terms of, because obviously I think, you still are the only plug-in version of the Dolby Atmos renderer. So I didn't know if there was any resistance there or whether they
No,
went
no,
with
no.
it.
Well, they were in the beginning. There was, because when before Spacelab came out, I already asked them, because I had in mind I want to do something for Dolby Atmos, and they didn't react. Once Spacelab came out, they reacted because they saw that I know what I'm doing, and then we talked it over. And first, I told them, as the initial idea was to make something similar to the MPEG-H exporter, I want to do a Dolby Atmos exporter. And they were okay, and then it developed further into a separate product, and basically I had all the freedom in the world. I mean, as it was actually, as you said, of course, I have to go through the certification process. So they test the Dolby Atmos Composer if it complies with the specifications for the Dolby Atmos rendering and for the ADM import and export, because those are basically the three functions of what the Dolby Atmos renderer does. It renders it so that you can that you can monitor it. It exports an ADM file and it imports ADM files. And that they were testing, but apart from that, they never complained about anything. They were skeptical in the beginning if it is possible to do Dolby Atmos in form of a plugin, but I knew it would be, so I did it.
This is everything for today. If you want to listen to the entire conversation with Thomas, I encourage you to visit our podcast channel. Link is in the description. If you have any questions or comments, please use the comment section below or join our Discord server. Link, once again, is in the description as well. And with that being said, see you all at the next video.